Army 2020 effect. It will affect the British Army, Ministry of Defence, Parliament, the Police Force, the British Army Reserves, and the British Army Regular. How it affects, and what is relevant. People out of jobs, weaker army, lack of support, lack of overseas bases, no financial support.
A quote, it is preferable to have fewer but better equipped military personnel than a greater number or poorly equipped servicemen and women. Sir Malcolm Griffkind MP.
As reported in the Telegraph, 2015 found that British Army could be cut to 50,000 over the next 4 years. This is bad as it means people may lose their jobs. For example, there has been a big decrease in money to the regular army soldiers, are already being reduced from 102,000 to 82,000. A new defence review that under the government could see a number cut again by around 40%. This means British Army soldiers will lose their jobs, which they could feel is unjustified and unfair. However, a positive of this is that even though there are less soldiers, the ones that will be there are better equipped. This means better weapons for the soldiers, so they will be able to deal with their enemies, so be able to keep themselves safer. Also having better protective gear, so less deaths and serious injuries, saving their lives and money or looking after them.
2020 Army will see regulars and reserves with the same equipment. Original operational requirements from the last 10 years will be embedded into the core equipment programme to bridge the gap to future capability entering service. The equipment proportion pivots on us working together to squeeze the most from our assets through efficient equipment management, talk, planning and foresight. Major General Paul Jakes, CBE, Director General Logistics Support and Equipment.
They can spend more money on the latest high-tech equipment to keep up to date with the Allies. This means that Britain will keep up to date with places such as Russia, America and China, which means that there is a possible threat of World War III. We will have the latest equipment and won't be behind. If the public knew the army has been shrunk down by nearly half, they will feel less secure and that their country is less able to protect itself, making everyone more afraid of threats like other nations or terrorism. With a terrorist threat, society could panic and attack members of their own, with people being from a certain nation or belief. The people that are being threatened by this are more likely to panic and lash out against people who happen to share the same ethnicity or religion, even if they have nothing to do with it, and even stand against it all because the people from the country feel less safe because of the nation's lack of armed forces that could fight against it. An example of their role in creating this policy, 15 MPs from different political parties sat on the Defence Committee to discuss the Army 2020 plan and report back to their findings to Parliament. All MPs then debate the bill proposing the Army 2020 policy and vote on it. If accepted, it then passes to the House of Lords. A news story on this is this article shows many of the MPs fear with these government cuts, and they are no longer able to meet the needs to protect the country and our interests.
Philip Hammond, then Defence Secretary and now Foreign Secretary, said the changes currently taking effect will ensure the Army has sustainable and properly funded future as flexible and agile force with first-class kit and worldwide reach. In previous role as a Defence Secretary, this change would help his department deliver budget cuts that the government requires to meet the overall reduction of the UK's budget. In his current role as Foreign Secretary, the Army 2020 plan may affect his ability to influence overseas governments in time of conflict.
British national security, as the British Army will be reduced by a percentage which could put the country at worry. The Army 2020 policy has put a worry to national security as there will be less soldiers on the home front. This is also affecting Britain, as it's more liable to losing a war overseas due to lack of manpower, also lack of funding, which affects the equipment the British forces will use overseas at war. This will worry the United Kingdom as it's more under threat with a weaker army. Lack of funds of the government is getting smaller, much smaller. The government has already announced that it's cutting its size by a fifth as a part of the wider defence cuts. In 2010, the army strength was about 102,000 troops. By 2020, it will be a regular army of just 82,000. This shows that the government need to use money on other things like getting better equipment. They need to do this by getting rid of people or cutting the money that they give the soldiers.